Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. With the fusion of AI and automation, labs are not only revolutionizing diagnostics and treatments, but are reshaping the very foundations of business within healthcare. We're joined by Dr. Bill Morice, CEO and president of Mayo Laboratories, to share what's next in this transformative era. Bill, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Oh, thank you. I very much appreciate you having me.
You got it. What changes are you seeing in diagnostics after COVID, and how are they reshaping healthcare?
Well, with COVID really illustrated problems with access that are fundamentally really about how our healthcare delivery system is structured. And so coming out of the pandemic, what we're seeing really is a drive for decentralization of healthcare, right, into non-traditional settings like at the home. With COVID, of course, the role of diagnostics and the critical role of diagnostics play in this was really brought to the forefront. And so with this decentralization, we're seeing an increased demand for things like at-home testing by consumers, by patients, by customers. And that really is evidenced by the over 400 tests that got EUA for at-home use during COVID, right? So that's a big impact on diagnostics. It's also being fueled by the substantial increase or investment, I should say, in the manufacturing base for these tests that we saw globally. Actually served as an industry advisor for a global effort to increase access to COVID diagnostics, and got to see firsthand the investments that are being made in public-private partnerships to increase this kind of the availability of these kind of tests. So we're seeing increased demand, decreased cost, increased availability, all of which for at-home diagnostics, all of which are going to really fuel their adoption. The real question now is, how do you take the information that's generated in that setting and seamlessly weave it into an individual's healthcare experience?
AI and large language models like ChatGPT are being rapidly introduced in healthcare. Are the labs impacted by this?
Yeah, I mean, hugely impacted, right? It might not be intuitively obvious, but about 70% or more of the quantitative data in anyone's healthcare record actually comes from the clinical laboratory. So all of these tools, of course, operate off of that healthcare data. So the labs are really quite central into this transformative, transformation in healthcare to the adoption of these sorts of tools like AI and machine learning. And the labs itself, what it's doing a couple things. It's really driving, number one, the increased need for interoperability or availability of this data, how the data is actually structured in the health record so that it's accessible to these tools. And also driving investment in technologies which take information from the laboratory and put it into the digital environment. Probably the best example of this is digital pathology. So, which is the process by which we take a glass slide that has someone's biopsy or surgical specimen on it, and actually take that and digitize it and put it into the electronic environment so it can be accessible to these tools. That process is expensive, but now, and so the adoption, particularly in the US, has been slow. But now with these sorts of tools really driving those sorts of investments as well.
What challenges and considerations come with implementing AI and automation in clinical diagnostics?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there are a lot of challenges, right? I think, first of all, it just from an adoption perspective for healthcare providers, for professionals, healthcare professionals themselves, kind of what is the role? Will I, the quote, will I be replaced by the machine sort of a thing? It is a real, how this fits into a doctor's workflow is a real challenge. Also for patients, right? There's been a lot of recent polling and studies that have shown that patients aren't quite ready for their doctor to be replaced by a machine per se. So really, how do we build trust, particularly when trust is kind of at a low right now in many healthcare organizations and institutions? So building that patient trust. And then from a business perspective, how does this all work? What's the regulatory environment that these tools will be approved in? What's the reimbursement? And then again, how they're structured into the workflow of healthcare, all are real things that will have to be considered and challenges to be overcome.
How is Mayo Laboratories leading the industry in this regard?
Well, I mean, Mayo Laboratories, part of our ethos as an institution is really to build partnerships. And so what we're trying to do as we see the needs for these things to happen is to try and lead the way in things like data standardization, so that there are data standards so that when a tool is introduced, it can be more widely adopted. Also building relationship with other industries, through things like Mayo Clinic Platform to create an ecosystem. I mean, I think it's really what will, for the promise that AI holds for healthcare and for laboratories, we have to evolve to sort of an ecosystem thinking about diagnostics, where things like at-home diagnostics and the very intensive sorts of machines that can generate massive amounts of information, more information than any individual doctor can actually comprehend and understand, right? We need to put all those into an ecosystem where we can apply tools like machine learning and AI so they're understandable for doctors and patients. And that's where Mayo is really trying to lead the way, both within our organization and through building partnerships with others in our industry.
Well, Dr. Morice, I think it's fair to say as well with every iteration of technology that there is going to be apprehension, but then it does kind of eventually play out for a more efficient system. I remember when all of our records started to be digitized, and I think, right now it's a great thing. All of my GP, all of my specialists are within one network. All of their records are shared. All of the pharmacy orders and all of the testing orders are all in one place. And at first, it might have been a little bit apprehensive to go from paper to have everything in one place, but I think it works out great. It's way more efficient than it ever used to be.
I think that's absolutely right. And, of course, at Mayo Clinic, we have that, the relentless focus on the needs of the patient. And so I think if we're thinking, Jill, about how we use these tools to actually create value for patients, for, increasing accessibility, both for individuals and for society, increasing consistency and quality, that will really show the value. And so that will move from apprehension and fear about what these tools will be to really wanting to embrace them, because we're really everyone is feeling that they're improving the healthcare experience, which we have to really be focused on.
All right, Dr. Morice, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.